Let's go. Ready? Yes?
Yeah.
All right, cool. Today we're going to talk about birthright citizenship. We already talked about it in the past, but there's so many things new because of the Supreme Court discussion. They haven't ruled on it yet, but it was really interesting. So we're going to discuss that a little bit. And then we're going to talk about success story. And this success story is actually pretty juicy because I denied it. It was crazy how I didn't accept this case, but somehow it weaved its way through and we still ended up taking it and we still ended up getting it approved. I was too scared to take on the case, but somehow it got approved. The fact pattern is just so crazy. I just did not think it was approvable. And the crazy thing is we took on the case and it just gradually got worse because everything we're seeing at the interviews. And for people who are watching, the case is regarding a family who came in as a tourist, overstayed it by a couple years, got married, and now the stepchildren and the parents got a green card. Short marriage, difficult bona fide documents, overstayed B2 visa, carrying stepchildren, so many things that made me feel like just a little bit too hard, but somehow it got approved, And so we're going to talk about that. It was Grace and Lisa's case, and I was shocked when I found out, but I'm really happy for them, for the client. And this just goes to show, we can't be right all the time. But I love it. I love it. We'll start with the birthright citizenship. Oh, and by the way, everybody who's watching on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, feel free to ask questions, right? We're going to be talking about the news. We're going to be talking about the success story, but we're also here for you guys. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to let us know, and we're here to answer. If I can answer, Margaret answer. If Margaret can answer, I'll answer. We're here. And yeah. Now, the thing about birthright citizenship is I can't believe President Trump actually went to the Supreme Court. It's one of those things where he signs the executive order. It could have just been for show, but he's really committed to it. He feels strongly that the 14th Amendment should not grant birthright citizenship to people who are born here without permanent residency or without a citizen, right? He really wants to limit the number of people who can have rights in America. I did not think he would be that committed to it. I thought it would just be showmanship, but it is part of his entire agenda. He's trying to not have people born to be US citizens. He's trying to denaturalize people. He is trying to make getting citizenship harder, even if you're a green card holder. And that's the situation. Now, from the way the justices reacted, from the way the public is reacting, I don't think birthright citizenship will be canceled by this executive order. Will it be a couple years from now when Congress makes another amendment to the Constitution? Potentially, if there's the political will. But what I predict will happen, and something that they can easily do, is for USCIS to change policies regarding the rights and privileges of US citizens who are born, whether it's the birth tourism industry or people who are born illegally. And I think once the public understands much more of the context, I think people will understand a lot more, right? Because right now people think, oh, your parents are illegal, they give birth to a US citizen. That is so unfair. They got such a big privilege. Or birth tourism, they fly over, they give birth, they got a US citizen. Wow, now they have all the same privileges and rights as any other US citizen. In the immigration context, that's not true. I think a lot of my friends and clients who don't work in the immigration industry, they think, oh, if I have a US citizen child, they can immediately petition and I can immediately get a green card and this chain migration will happen. That's just not true, right? First of all, your child has to be 21 years old. So if they give birth, you're talking about 2 decades later. And even if it's 21, the moment you apply doesn't mean you will immediately get the green card. The whole adjudication process could still take a year and a half to 2 years. And if there's unlawful presence, you might have to do waivers. You might have to explain other things. You might not qualify because of public charge. Just because your child's 21 doesn't necessarily mean suddenly the parents can immediately get green card or get it fast. The birth tourism idea, they come over to US, gives birth, US citizen child, goes back to their home country for 20 plus years. Can they immediately petition somebody else? They don't have enough residency in the United States, and that might not be approved. So the whole idea, is it just a branding issue, right? There's all these people who are US citizens, but what consequence? Why do you care? What is the effect, right? A person born as a US citizen, they go abroad. Another country spends its public education money, spends its medical money, spends all this effort to raise a child from 0 to 21 until they become a productive adult that can contribute economic value to a country. Then what? They come back to the US, start working and pay taxes. Is that a bad thing? You know, I mean, there's a reason why the 14th Amendment, when it was enacted, it was great for the country, right? We needed more people to populate this great land, to do more work. I mean, the size of the United States compared to all the other countries, I mean, we need more people here. There's so many farmland, so many vacant places that needs more cities, more economic centers. Is it bad to have more US citizen, right? So is it a branding issue? Is it just that they got it too easily, that they were born here and suddenly they get it, and so you feel like it's somehow you're robbed of your, hard work? What's the idea, right? Because the legal argument is pretty weak, right? The legal argument in the Supreme Court saying they're trying to get rid of the 14th Amendment or change the interpretation of the 14th Amendment is quite weak because we have all these years of precedent. So what is the public policy? Why do you care, President Trump? Why do you care that people who come into the country, give birth, that they got a US citizen? How does that harm the United States? We actually didn't hear a lot of discussion regarding that. It was purely about the constitutionality of this nature. And so far, we don't really know. Right, I follow this intensely. I'm watching all the different channels. I haven't heard any substantive public policy arguments on how this affects the economy, how this affects the crime rate, how this affects the culture. There's no actual consequence arguments. It's all branding arguments. It's how can they get the US citizenship so easily? How come we are still doing this compared to back then? And we're talking about logistics. If you do implement this, how difficult would it be for society to adapt to it, right? So we're talking about logistics on the difficulty. We're talking about the constitutionality of it, the way it was framed, and why Congress needs to change it instead. But we haven't actually heard any arguments about the consequence of this. Like, who is this harming? Why should we as a society care? Why can't we have more people just be born as US citizen? But I think what the public will start to find out more and more as USCIS, as the government starts looking into this more seriously, how many people are born to tourists? What happens to them? When do they come back? Again, these are things that are happening in the past, I would say 20, 30 years, right? And so in the past 20 or 30 years, more and more people have come into the country, have given birth, and then the children are grown and raised as US citizen, and they're abroad as US citizen. What happens? And I think once studies come out to find out more, well, if the children are US citizen, born here, and the parents are not, it is a long and arduous journey. And these US citizens oftentimes become just like first immigration parents, where they, or first generation immigrants, where they work super hard. They don't commit a lot of crime because they're scared for their parents. They sometimes are the ones taking up a lot of the responsibility of adults to care for the parents. They have very low crime rate. They're very hardworking. They're very smart, and they're trying to reach the American dream because their parents put everything on them, right? And then if they succeed, their parents can get a green card. You'll probably see more and more studies that show, people who cross the border and overstay their visa and give birth, maybe they are actually an economic force and good force for society. There's no studies yet, but I predict that we will probably see that, right? And then there will be a big divide between children who are born here, raised as U.S. citizen, versus children who are born here and then just leave the country for 20 years. And then USCIS will probably come up with more and more requirements of if you are a U.S. citizen, but you want to petition your parents, if you want to confer U.S. citizenship parents to their children, right? Like they grow up abroad and they get married abroad and they give birth abroad, their children won't be able to get U.S. citizen because they don't meet the physical presence test, right? And so USCIS can easily come up with more and more of those type of requirements. Now, again, most people might not understand, but if you're a U.S. citizen and you are abroad and you're working, well, you also have to pay taxes in the United States as well, right? The taxes you pay overseas can give you some credit, but if you are really wealthy overseas, then you also have to pay taxes in the U.S. So is it beneficial for the United States to have U.S. citizens all around the world? Is it beneficial for the United States to have more U.S. citizens here who are a plus to society? Those are the discussions that we have not seen yet. And I think a lot of people don't understand, but I think it's something that we're going to see more and more of.
Yeah, it sounds like you don't think this is going to pass, but I mean, assuming it gets through all of the hoops, do you think it's even something that USCIS could enforce given all of the backlogs and all of the delays with all sorts of cases already?
You mean if USC, are you saying like if they do change the amendment?
Yes. Like whether now or in the future, like do you think it's even something that USCIS could actually enforce? And
well, USCIS just has to, right? So it's if Congress makes a change, they're going to have to implement it, right? Just like, for example, when the United States withdrew all the people from Afghanistan, and like, okay, USCIS prioritized all the EB4 cases, prioritized all the work permits, and USCIS didn't have the personnel. They had the backlog, but it was a mandate, and so they just had to do it. And so all the other cases had to suffer because of that. But it's just what happens, right? When Trump issues the travel ban, USC and issues the public charge rule, like new memos and new policies come out, they just have to adapt. They're going to make mistakes. Motion reopens will happen, lawsuits will happen, but it will have to happen, right? And so a lot of the discussion is how they're going to adjudicate it. If somebody's born, do they have a birth certificate? Do they not have a birth certificate? It's going to be a pretty drastic change if the 14th Amendment suddenly does change in its interpretation with regards to, well, your status actually depends on your parents' status. So I definitely don't think it's going to happen this year with this Supreme Court ruling. I don't foresee it happening in Congress, but seeing how President Trump works the first term and the second term, he always shoots for the moon and then he lands where he lands, right? Mm-hmm. So he just directly wants to change the 14th Amendment. He doesn't get it at Supreme Court. Congress doesn't give it to him. What's in his authority? Well, he could direct the consulates to adjudicate it accordingly. He could direct USCIS to kind of change its interpretation, internal memos. That's within his prerogative. And because he's already made such a big splash, few people would complain. Especially he gauged it as like, 50% of people are actually for this kind of argument that if somebody's born here, quote unquote, illegally, they shouldn't get a U.S. citizen. Oh, I have more rights to do that, right? Just so you guys know, if somebody comes into the United States, gives birth, have the U.S. citizen, they leave, the chance of them now trying to get another visa to come back in becomes so difficult. We've seen so many people who had their tourist visas denied in the future, their E2 visas denied. Maybe they got it for a few years, they invested a whole bunch of money, but then on the extension, get denied. So it's not without consequence. Somebody comes in, gives birth. And that's assuming they paid for everything, right? They came in, they said, hey, I'm gonna give birth in the US. The CBP allows them to come in. They pay for everything out of pocket, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 to the hospital to give birth, and then leaves. Well, still the next 20 years, a lot more difficult time getting a tourist visa to come back to the US. And if the parents can't come, how is this little kid going to come to the US by themselves? So they don't come. So then now the children, this US citizen is born and raised abroad. And when they become of age, if you want to come to the US, good luck getting a job. But if you can, suddenly the US got to educate this US citizen child without being injured, without being disabled, and becoming very smart, depleting the resources of another country and another family. They come here and they immediately work. Is that bad for the US? You know, a lot of things to think about. A lot of things to think about. We're getting some questions, and then Margaret can answer. Oh, wow, there's a lot. Shoot. Okay.
Okay, so it seems like these are just general questions. You want to jump into those?
Sure.
Okay.
Ask me.
So, someone is asking, you said born illegally. Can you explain what that means?
Right. Obviously, what does it mean to be born illegally? You're born, right? But what President Trump and the executive order and the Solicitor General is arguing is that if you're in the United States and you don't have a citizenship, you don't have permanent residency, your parents either are here on temporary visas like H1, L1 visas, or you cross the border illegally, or you're here on a tourist visa and you're birth tourism and you give birth, they consider that to be not conferring US citizenship privilege. That is not what the 14th Amendment kind of entails. And the way they argue it is saying the 14th Amendment says you must be subject to the jurisdiction thereof, which means if you are just a temporary visa holder, or if you cross the border illegally, or if you're a tourist, you just bought a ticket, you flew to the US, you're not quote unquote subject to a jurisdiction thereof, and therefore your child shouldn't be a US citizen. That's what that whole context means. Obviously, if you're born, it will be so sad to say a child born is born like illegally, right? So that's that.
Okay, and John is asking, will immigration deny my wife's case if she went to another state to get a driver's license?
Will immigration deny their green card just because they went to a different state to get a driver's license? Let me break that down. Getting multiple driver's license is not an inadmissibility or a deportability. Those are two key terms because that's the reason why green cards get denied. So like, if you commit a crime, it's not because of the crime, it's because particular crimes or when you have multiple crimes, it becomes an inadmissibility, it becomes a deportable offense. So your question then becomes, is getting a driver's license at different states an inadmissibility and a deportable offense? Obviously, it is not, right? It is not written in the statute. You can't get different driver's license. But why is that a concern? Because if your adjustment of status green card application is based on marriage, a bona fide marriage, a true marriage, then if your spouse suddenly has a driver's license in a different state and a different address, then when the USCIS officer is adjudicating your case and they use their LexisNexis system and checks, and suddenly your wife and you have different addresses, then it increases fraud scrutiny. And then marriage fraud, or not a real marriage, is a basis to deny a case. Just to put everything in context for you. Is it illegal to get a driver's license? No. Does she need the driver's license in that other state for business reasons? And you guys have a marriage that works like that? Explain it. You can still win case, right? So hopefully that gives you the context.
Okay, and I just did my biometrics to get my green card from a Visa U, and they only took my photo, no signature.
That happens. Yep. So not completely. That it happens to a lot of people. So that's okay.
Okay. Had a naturalization interview more than 120 days ago. No update.
120 days is getting kind of long. We have seen some naturalization cases take over a year. Depends on which country you're from. Depends on, what kind of case. Are they doing an FBI check? We have seen a lot of cases get approved within the first month. So 120 days is getting long. I would say really consider mandamus lawsuits if it passes a year. Some cases, like I just did a consultation yesterday, the client waited how long? Was it 2 years? A year and a half? I think that she already waited a year and a half after the naturalization. But I still told her to keep on waiting because her 10-year green card hasn't been approved yet. So it depends on what kind of green card you have, your background. But if you've been a green card holder for a long time and you have a clean case and you apply for naturalization, 120 days is getting to a longer portion of it. And so you could do an inquiry with USCIS to kind of push them.
Okay, and I just received my prima facie submitted complete packet 5 out of 25. When can I expect work permit?
Probably May 25th, right? 5/25.
I have no idea. Yeah, but
yeah, maybe last year. I would assume.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, work permits. We've seen some work permits takes up to 15 months. And some cases because of that we have to sue the government on mandamus for that. We did that I think last year or last year. We sued on behalf of I think was it 27 individuals whose work permits took over 15 months, and so yeah, it is getting long.
I would just say if it's prima facie dependent on VAWA, it does take a long time. It could take up to 2 to 3 years. So 1 year, it's definitely going to take a lot longer.
Yeah.
How do you properly submit evidence for past traffic citations and where to get the full report?
How do you properly submit evidence for past traffic citations? When you're filing for 45 or you're filing for N400, traffic citations, we usually don't even include, right? We say we had it, we explain it in the addendum, but we don't go get it because, again, going back to the inadmissibility and deportability, having traffic violations is not a deportable or inadmissible offense. So they don't need to look into it. But they ask for it, we answer, but we don't need to provide it. Now, if it's a traffic violation in the sense of you're driving 90 miles per hour and it's considered a manslaughter in your state, that's not just a traffic citation anymore. There's a whole official court record. So
yeah, I was gonna say, or DUI.
Yeah,
it
DUI.
would be the official court certified.
Those become much more serious. But if it's a traffic ticket, a parking ticket, we don't go try to get it. I wouldn't actually even know where to get it.
Okay, and someone is asking, I'm waiting for my oath ceremony. It's been 2 months. What should I do?
Just keep on waiting. Sometimes oath ceremony is 3 to 6 months. It used to be same day, but now it's just taking longer. You need an official judge to go through the process, or a deputized judge.
And Rod is asking, I overstayed, went to college, paid taxes, and now I am a citizen.
Wonderful.
Trying to get to the question that says, and like me, I know many people. Okay,
Yep.
So I don't think there was a question.
But we do also know a lot of people, right?
Okay. I think we already answered that question. My boyfriend was accused of something he didn't do and got deported. Is there any way he can come back?
That is so hard because he had his chance at court, right? And he should have been able to explain it and overturn it, but it's on record. And so now you want to change the record. It's going to be really hard. So chances are low. You could try and try again, apply for different waivers, but the chances are low.
Okay, and then someone is asking, I have a combo pending I-751 and an N400 from Venezuela. Is a 39 bag does it affect their case?
Venezuela is part of the 75 country ban, or if it's part of the 75 country ban, you just can't get the visa abroad. But if you're in the United States, you can still apply to get green card. But he's doing the N400, right?
Yeah. So if it's part of the ban, it would affect the N400.
Right.
Not the
so the 39 country ban, then it's just a pause, right? So it's not moving forward. You could still apply, you're just waiting in line, right? So it could just take a long, long time. Normally 751 and 400, like that was the case earlier I was talking about. They already waited almost 4 years, right? And that's without a ban. So with a ban, 5, 6, 7 years, right? That's something you have to prepare for.
Okay. If we filed married but separately, will that affect my husband interview in Ciudad Juárez?
I'm assuming tax returns. You filed your marriage and then you're filing taxes separately? Or do you mean you got married and you're filing, but now you guys are separated because you guys don't love each other anymore and you want to get divorced? Or if you just mean if you file, but you guys are separated because you have to be because he's over there and you're over here. I guess I just asked a whole bunch of questions for you, so I should answer it, right? If you file taxes separately, that's totally fine, right? You just still have to prove bona fide marriage. If you are in the process of a marital conflict, so you are separated, you're not divorced yet, but you're separated emotionally, physically, all sorts of stuff. We have still seen a lot of cases get approved. It's up to the officer. How you answer the questions is nuanced. You have to kind of explain it, but you got to be careful, right?
And they're clarifying that they're not filed married, but separate, still married. So they're just separated.
Right. So if you're just physically separated because of the circumstance, right? He doesn't have a visa, he can't be over here, and you have a life here, you can't just live there. Just prove that the marriage is real. This happens all the time, right? You guys should know each other's stuff. You guys should be talking at least once a week, maybe, right? And know each other in and out. So that's pretty important. They want to see if this is a real marriage.
Okay, and then John is asking a follow-up question in regards to the license question earlier. My wife went to Nevada for a license, but living in Florida, will her case automatically be denied now?
Let's say it again. Where is it?
This one. So they went to Nevada for the license, but living in Florida, which I think the same answer that you gave, where
Yeah.
you have to have a valid response as to why you're living separately.
Right. I think the issue is this a real marriage? Why is there different addresses? And if you can explain it, great. If you can't explain it, if they're suspicious, then it can be challenged, right? That's the key thing. So it's not about the license by itself. It's about everything else. How did you meet? Where do you guys live? What investments do you guys have? Why do you have this license? What is she doing there? What are you doing here? Do you have multiple properties, right? Do you guys fly a lot? Show me your tickets, right? So never think it's just one thing. It's always a lot of things all together, and be able to explain that well.
Okay, and Berenice Lopez is asking, what is your current, for DACA renewals, what is your current immigration status or category? So what to enter on that question?
I actually don't know. Gabby would know. Do you know?
Yeah, we usually just put DACA pending.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, I haven't done, the last one I did personally was in 2013, I want to say, 13, 14. So it's been over 10 years.
And then let's see, well, it's married.
Someone on YouTube is asking any update on the immigrant visa pause.
No update that I know of, and I predict it will keep on going for a long time. However, separate to the immigration pause, right before the pause, if you remember, the executive order went out to create a bond for non-immigrants. I don't know if you heard about this, right? Before you apply for a tourist visa, you approve or deny. That was just in the past. Last year, they said, well, I don't believe you're gonna leave the country, but you can apply for this bond up to $10,000, $15,000. And if you don't leave and you ended up overstaying your visa, then we will keep your money. We'll get $10,000, $15,000, right? And I made a whole video about it, how this only harms poor people. It's not fair to the poor countries. Money is not fair all across the board. What, you can't set that. It should be a percentage, etc. Well, there's an update on that issue, which is they added more countries to it now, right? So I forgot how many countries was originally on that list, but they just added a whole bunch more. And I predict they're going to add more and more and more. Maybe they will fill the entire 75 countries and more. Why? Because the 75 country ban prevents people from getting immigrant visas at the consulate. But if they can get a visa to the United States, they can still file for adjustment and still get a green card in the US. So a lot of people have been trying to do that, right? Okay, I can't do it through door A, I'll do door B. They're trying to apply for non-immigrant visas. And so now people can pay for this bond, fly to the US, adjust status, and get a green card.
Okay, and then someone's saying, I applied for naturalization replacement certificate in November. How long does that usually take?
N565, right? I think it takes about 6 months. I think that was the last one we did last year. Kathy did it. Have you done one recently?
Not recently. I would
I
have
think
to check the processing
it does
time.
take a long time.
Okay, and then how long is it taking to get an appointment in Ciudad Juárez once all steps are completed?
Oh, you would know this one.
Yeah, in general, about 1 year.
Oh, geez.
Yeah.
Oh, geez. So long.
I am a 22-year-old citizen. My mom is from one of the countries on visa ban list. My mom is in the US on B2.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So really consider looking into B1, B2, and then do adjustment of status and get a green card. And today's video on success story, right? So stay tuned for that, is talking about this exact situation. Family came in, tourist visa, and adjust status. And I was so scared, I denied the case, but somehow still slipped through and we still ended up doing it. And the case got approved, right? So there's a lot of concerns. And, you know, a couple years ago, this wouldn't have warranted a success story at all. It's just a B1, B2, just adjustment of status. What's so difficult about it? But now in this administration, this time of day, you could be detained by ICE. Super scary. But a case got approved. So we want to share all the ins and outs and discussion and strategy. So you can use that for your reference. But if you guys succeed, you bypass the ban and you got the green card, right?
Okay, and what's the wait status on spousal visa from Canada to US married?
It's the same. I mean, it depends, I guess, if you're in Canada or if you're in the US. But, you know, in either case, we usually estimate about 2 years from I-130, 45, or NVC.
Okay, and then they asked also, what is the best approach for a young couple? US citizen married to Canadian citizen.
There's a lot of things to think about. Do you want to live together in the US while you're waiting? Do you want to live abroad while you're waiting during that 2 years? Do you want to work in the US? Do you want to work abroad? After you get the green card, do you want to stay here or do you want to leave, right? Everybody is kind of different. We know a lot of people who want to get the green card but don't want to actually stay, and so they leave. So you have to apply for the re-entry permit. So there's a lot of things to kind of think about. We also know a lot of people who have good offers from, you know, in here. So maybe you want to do like a TN visa, you want to do other type of visa, and then you want to adjust, right? So there's a lot of things, but the processing time is about 2 years. And so you want to think about what your life looks like.
Okay, and what is the most common reason for a green card being denied in interview in Mexico?
So many. So many. Let's say
I would,
top
I mean,
5.
yeah, I would say multiple entries. So usually for a lot of these cases, you can only have one unlawful entry. And sometimes clients have multiple, they didn't disclose it. The FOIA records also didn't show that full history. So it's usually something that wasn't disclosed.
Yeah.
If they were working with an attorney, that's what we've seen. Like multiple entries that weren't disclosed would lead to a denial.
Fraud and misrepresentation, right? You got a tourist visa before, but something was incorrect on there. You didn't disclose your family. The marriage isn't legitimate. They have a lot of questions. But, you know, we also see stuff like tattoo, medical things, you know, drug abuses, criminal records in the U.S. and out of the U.S. So lots of little minor things. The public charge thing has become much more important. If you do come to the U.S., where are you going to live? How are you going to work? Who's going to support you? How much money do you have in your assets are you going to bring over, right? So that is something that is like really high on the priority list for denials for the consulate these days.
Okay, and can Canadian citizen visit on B1, B2 while the I-130 is in process?
So meaning you file for the I-130 And then while it's pending, which could take a year to a year and a half, you want to come into the country. As a Canadian, you don't need a B1, B2, right? You could just directly come in, but you need to convince the CBP officer. And the best way to convince the CBP officer is say, I definitely will not stay and adjust. I have, everything back at home. I have a round trip ticket and this is my job. I'm just here for 3 days, for 5 days. You have to convince the officer each and every time. And it's hard to say. Sometimes it's better by flight, sometimes it's better by car, right? But they will see the I-130, so do not lie.
Okay, and then is WIC being considered a public charge as well? It's one of the programs, like the welfare.
I have to look into it, but you could plug it in ChatGPT and they'll probably give you a pretty good answer. The key thing that they want to look at is it federal and is it federal money assistance, right? So if it's state, if it's local, if it's a private organization, if it's coupons, that doesn't really count. And also, how long were you on it? Was it just for 1 month, one time, or was it extended over the years? And even if it is, do you have everything else to kind of overcome that? Well, I did that, but that was, 10 years ago. Now I am already this and this and this, right?
If someone signed self-deport but went back and is in danger and tried to come back, can he do asylum?
We don't do asylum cases in the US. Oh, I mean, sorry. That's so funny. I said that. That's really funny. We don't do asylum cases at the office. But the way I said it, it's kind of arguable that US is not really doing asylum, period. But I'm pretty sure the asylum attorney lawyers that I know, they will probably say, yes, you can do that. But it's going to be really hard.
Okay, and then Wilmer is asking, so it sounds like they're going through adjustment of status, biometric appointment this coming Monday. How soon after could I expect work permit? Then it says from TPS.
Oh, from TPS?
Yeah.
Oh,
sounds like.
I don't know. I don't know about TPS. We don't do TPS here, but I would just say 6 months potentially.
And this is a follow-up question in regards to the whole I-130 and then B1, B2. Mm-hmm. Isn't the whole point of having a pending I-130 showing no intent to adjust since it's a different form?
No. I-130 is to prove that you guys are married, that this is a legitimate petition between spouse or siblings or a relative. So all it does is to allow you to get in line to choose which line you want to go to, adjustment of status or the NVC process, right? So by filing the I-130 shows you have immigrant intent, kinda. And so now the officer knows you have that. Well, how are you going to convince them that you're not going to overstay this particular time? Again, the argument I said, we've advised many clients, it has worked, but it can't guarantee it will always work, right? If an officer really doesn't like you, really doesn't believe you, they think you're going to come in and just adjust it right afterwards, they could deny your entry.
Okay, and then I'm going to go back to this question. So now I understand. He meant former TPS, but your answer was still right. So after he goes to biometrics, it's generally about 6 months to get the work permit.
Right.
And then, so Mark Chavez is asking, what can we do? Question mark, ordered for deportation. Is there hope?
Yes. Depends on your case. You can see so many cases online where somebody gets a removal order.
Sorry, there was a so let me give you more context.
Okay. okay.
Okay, so mother-daughter entered under amnesty, missed the court date due to fraudulent lawyer, and didn't change the venue. So now he's asking, given that, what can they do? And is there hope?
Yeah, look into what's called matter Lozada. If you can show that the error that was made in your case is not your fault, it's the lawyer's fault, you could ask the court to reopen the case and then try to win it, right? So if you guys have a good case, you guys have equity, you guys have a good argument, things have changed, you have things that you could present to the court, you can adjust now for some reason, you could present all of that. And just because you missed it, change of venue, you didn't get the notice, not fair to deport you without due process, you can look into Madam Lozada. And typically, it's filing a complaint with the state bar against that attorney. It is filing a malpractice claim against that attorney. It is, writing against that attorney and allowing them to kind of respond and explain if they did it or not did it, right? But that has helped so many people. So definitely look into that. And it sounds like there is still a chance.
Okay, and then is it necessary to upload proof of ongoing relationship under NVC optional documents?
If it's really strong, do it. Usually we advise 5 to 15 total. So if you already gave a lot, you don't necessarily need to give more. But it's been a long time. You want to give a few extra. It doesn't harm. But don't upload like 50 and they're all like just receipts of, you going in and out. It just 2 burgers, right? That doesn't help anybody.
Yeah, and a lot of times our clients just take a few more things to the interview. They don't necessarily also upload, but if you just want to be extra cautious, right. I would say, yeah, same thing. Upload a few, but don't overwhelm them with having to review a lot more.
Yeah, the best way I kind of help people understand it is assume that whatever you upload, that thing is the only thing they're going to look at, right? There's like 20 things, so just kind of skim through and they just open up one attachment. If that's the attachment they opens up and it's really bad, right, or it's not a good evidence, then you just harmed yourself, right? So you only want to upload things that are actually really strong.
Okay, and then this is a question about DACA. Should I renew my DACA 6 to 7 months in advance, seeing how long it's taking?
Yes. Yes.
Can you check your Slack, Margaret?
Mm-hmm. And then, so last time you advised I apply for global entry before I travel abroad due to my multiple DUIs. Am traveling end of this month. I don't think I will get interview prior. Should I still apply?
Oh, you're applying now? Or you haven't applied yet?
Do you want me to read it again?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's last time you advised I apply for global entry before I travel abroad due to my multiple DUIs.
Okay.
I'm traveling end of this month. I don't think I will get interview prior. Should I apply?
I think the context was if you apply and you get denied, then it's an indication of what they think about your green card, so it's safe to not travel, probably, right? That's probably the context. Now, if you apply now and you travel in a month and you come back, you could go to the interview after you enter to review and to see if you could get the global entry. But that will only help you next time, not this current time. And also, if the whole point of applying global entry is just to safeguard you right now and you can't use it until after you come back, then it's kind of pointless, right? And so maybe don't apply now, wait till you come back, you enter successfully, then you're much more confident that if you apply for global entry, you'll probably get it. And then you'll use it to safeguard you in the future.
Okay, and then another question on YouTube is, greetings, got my receipts for VAWA and AOS package. They reuse biometrics for I-765 and I-131, but I received an appointment to get biometrics for I-485. Is this normal?
Yes. Yep. They changed the biometrics rule last year, I think in December, so they're doing a lot more biometrics. So you reuse it for some, don't use it, reuse it for others. So just go and do it. And if you do it, you might be able to reuse it for future biometric appointments.
Okay, and then I think you answered this earlier, but just in case there's anybody new, do you anticipate the 75 country pause will end this year?
No, I don't think it will end this year. I don't think it will end next year. I think it might take 3 years.
Follow up on that global entry. They haven't applied yet. They're trying to prevent a secondary screening.
Right.
That they would often get before the new administration.
Right. So I think the whole idea was if you got the global entry before you left, you might be able to avoid it. But since your time is running out, you only have a month, you might not be able to get it. You could try to do the redress, right? A redress where you insert your information and you don't want them to pull you to secondary because it's a waste of their time and your time. You've already been screened. And maybe by doing that, you don't go to secondary. So that's one additional tip that you could potentially do. Depending on which airport you're flying out of, potentially you could do the private service. LAX has it, a few other airports have it, but that way you don't have to go through primary and secondary. You could just directly have a one-on-one conversation with a CBP officer.
Okay, and then Miss Neurologist, she applied for F1 reinstatement. Her school made an error with the CPT start date. What is the probability of approval?
You file the reinstatement, but on the form it's incorrect. I have seen USCIS give you a request for evidence and ask for a new I-20. So if there is an error, that could happen. If USCIS just directly denies it, you could do a second motion to reopen or a second reinstatement. We've definitely done that before, where there was 2 or 3 reinstatements back to back, and then it got approved. So if it's a minor mistake like this, there's still hope, especially if the school owns up to it and they're willing to help you out.
Yeah. And someone is asking, how do I know if I will be interviewed together or if it'll just be, or just my husband?
You don't know. Some say it's a lottery. You know, in the past, they only do it on the more difficult cases. Some have always done lotteries. It depends on the officer and the department, right? Now, there are definitely increased pressure to do this. And I have seen some people do the Stokes interview, separate them, but super short, right? Ask like, because if the officer doesn't want to spend a lot of time on your case, right? They have a big backlog of cases that they want to get through. They don't want to spend their time challenging people, denying people, making their work harder, right? And so if you get selected for the lottery and you have to separate, they give you 10 easy questions because they want to prove your case already. They don't want you to fail, right? Now, if something comes up, it's like, oh, this is kind of really suspicious, right? Like, how many rooms do you have in your house? You said 4, the other person says 6. It's like, okay, are there like hidden rooms? What are you talking about? Then it becomes much more, right? Like, what hobbies does the other person have? And you say 5, and the other person said none of those same things. It's like, oh, are you dating a different person? You know, so you definitely, want. And easy questions might not be easy to everyone. Looking at both of your phones and going through pictures and text messages, it could, even if they wanted to approve the case initially, they might uncover something that's not good. So still prepare.
Okay.
We have a few more minutes and we're going to be answering more questions, and then we'll wrap up today's live. And also just to let everybody know, next week I won't be doing the live. And then next week, I think we will be in DC and we will be doing a live there, but it might not be at this time specifically. So stay tuned. We'll let you guys all know where we're at.
Okay, and then a quick question from YouTube. Are you aware of successful national interest exception requests for the 75 countries pause?
We haven't done it yet. I haven't heard of anybody who did it, but I would encourage you, if you want to do it, just do it.
Okay, I think we got through most of the questions. I'm just scrolling through. If you want to copy and paste, if we missed it, go ahead. Or let's see, I think we have a new one. I have a question on green card renewal. My mom is coming to expiration in June. How does she reapply? I'm assuming they're asking.
Yeah, how does she reapply? Go ahead. I think you do a lot of these.
So this would just be a normal I-90. Just filing the I-90 for a green card renewal.
And you can file it online. You can file it by paper. You might get a request for evidence if she's been out of the country for a long time. Typically over 6 months or a year. We have seen a lot of requests for evidence. If there's criminal records, we have seen it. But you just file the I-90, and if you get a request for evidence, prepare, respond. We see a lot of success with that. I-90 is not as difficult as filing for the green card the first time.
Okay, and someone is asking, is it okay to update their taxes after sending their application to USCIS?
Sure. Yeah. That happens all the time.
Okay. Are you located in New York?
No, we're not. We're in California, Los Angeles, right next to Disneyland.
Okay, Galen, is there any question that we missed?
Yes, I just sent on Slack.
Okay. I think I just read it right. The NIE.
Oh, yes. Then
That's
one last TikTok. I sponsored my DACA daughter in July 2024. How long will it take as a green card holder mom?
Wait, green card holder mom sponsoring daughter
Mhm.
overseas, or I mean,
It doesn't specify.
it depends on what country you're from, and so take a look at the visa bulletin. You know, the top it says which country you're from, and if you're not on there, if you're not part of like China, India, Philippines, Mexico, generally you have a lot shorter time, right? And then you want to look into the category that applies to you, and that'll show you approximately how long your priority date is. Now, the I-130 application by itself could take about a year and a half, but once you know what, just use ChatGPT, right? I'm born in this country. I'm a green card. I'm petitioning my daughter. You know, how long does it take? What's the priority date? They'll probably spit out the correct answer.
Yeah, and they specified Pakistan, but
Oh, okay.
I mean, we wouldn't know the exact date.
Right.
What is your rate for I-90 application support?
Just $250 consultation, right? Just do a consultation, share your screen, kind of review with you, walk you through the process, guide you through. We don't have to file it. We do have a lot of clients that retain us to do the full thing, but for most people, I think the consultation is totally sufficient. Now, if there's entry-exit problems, if there's criminal problems, if there's RFE problems, obviously that's why you hire a firm. But if it's a simple online application, I believe the $250 consultation would fully suffice, and just book it with marketing.
Okay, and then I see that last question, and I know you have a video about this, but can you get a green card without marriage?
Yeah, you can get a green card over like 43 different ways, right? You could get a green card by being extraordinary. You have a great resume. You can have a company sponsor you. You can invest a lot of money and do the EP5 program. Your children could petition you. Your parents could petition you. Your grandparents could petition you. You could be a translator for the Afghan government back then. You could be a religious worker. You know, there's all sorts of ways to get a green card without marriage.
Okay.
Do you remember the fact pattern for this case?
Yeah, so the applicant was a B1, B2 overstay.
Yep.
She married a U.S. citizen. I know you mentioned that you rejected the case initially, but then ultimately it was approved, and then her stepson got the green card too.
Right.
So it was just-
so the mother came into the country with her son,
Yes.
was under, I think,
Visitor.
17 years old at the time, or I think 16 or 15 at the time. They both overstayed.
Yes.
Now the son is almost 17 years old-ish. The mother gets married, and then they both file adjustment of status really quickly right after the marriage. And now they have to go to this interview, right? And so when I was looking at this case, I'm like, the officer is going to suspect the marriage is real or not. It's a visa overstay. She could be detained at the interview. This started happening last year in San Diego. It's ground zero for this, and it was potentially going to spread across the country. It didn't, but who knew, right? It was a really scary time. And also, you're trying to get 2 green cards, not just one. And does the father have a relationship with the child, and can he prove it? So many questions, and so I just said no. It's too hard.
Yeah, I think,
don't recommend
sorry to
it.
interrupt you. On the surface, there were a lot of red flags because the petitioner, he had 2 prior marriages. This was the 3rd one.
Right.
He had already petitioned prior spouses.
Right.
Like you said, it was a short marriage. There was also a 20-year age gap. So this is one of those cases where USCIS looks at all of those things automatically,
Right.
and they're definitely going to question. So I know Lisa was mentioning during the interview, they got separated.
Yes.
They had to do the Stokes interview.
Right.
And even then the applicant, she
Said
English
something
is-
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. She answered a lot of personal questions incorrectly. She had a translator. It was not easy.
Right.
It was very stressful. But it got approved. Why do you think that is?
I was going to ask you.
You know, I think it's just an officer discretion. You know, I think we do a lot of these videos, and I think the main benefit of doing these videos is not some grand strategy or our name is so powerful, or this officer is so weak, or the clients are so capable. It's not any other things that you might immediately think. I think the main benefit of these success stories is here's what happened, here's the case, here's the background, here's what we did. And so much of it depends on just doing good work and having faith, and you just don't know. Like I said, when I see the fact pattern for this case, I just said, I really don't think it's gonna work. I don't advise you to do it. If you get detained, now you and the child is gonna be locked up. You know, how are you guys gonna deal with that? You guys didn't come to America for this. It's such a scary time. The child is like about to go to college. There's so many things you don't want the trauma to happen, right? So I declined. Now, the really interesting thing is, I don't know, I mean, right after I declined it, at the same time, Grace and Lisa did the consultation and they were able to take it, and they had confidence that it could work, even though it was really scary. So they were pushing through it. And then by the time it came to the interview, I was like, oh, I remember that case. I actually declined it. But somehow it worked through and the case got approved, you know? And so a lot of times it's the client's faith that it could succeed. It's different people's perspective. That's why it's much more art than it is science, right? We don't know. Like, we're not the officers. If we were the officer and we knew we're going to deny or approve a case, definitely makes it a lot easier. But we're stuck in between, right? The client wants the green card. We want to help them get the green card. We want to make the best argument, but there's just such a weak argument to make. And there's so many uncertainties, right? And so, you know, we see all these red flags, but I'm glad the case got approved, you know? And I'm so proud of the team.
I'm sure they must have given some answers that coincided. So even though they messed up, like, I think at the end of the day, because usually they roll on like more likely than not to be true. Is that right? For these types of cases?
Right. But we've seen officers, you know, interpret the more likely than not differently than the normal human being, right? It's like, I need to know the marriage is real. You know, I only see 20 documents. I only see, you know, 90% the answer is right. I need to be 100% sure. Sorry, officer, you just have to be 50% sure. But they interpret differently. So in this case, there were so many red flags and they answered incorrectly. It was just such a stressful moment. But the officer still adjudicated in the positive. Now, good things about the case, right? We said a lot of bad things. You know, smart mother, smart child, aging father, no criminal record. There's economic viability in the U.S. They'll work hard. It's like, if you deny the case, deport this family, you kind of ruin their life. You know, are they really a harm to the United States? I feel like the officer did a big balancing act and approved the case within a week, within a month, you know? Now, with that being said, it's a 2-year green card. The fight is not over, right? 2 years from now, they have to file for 751. And if the marriage has fallen apart, if there's all these other things, they could still deny the green card at that time, you know? So it is just a temporary green card. But with that being said, I'm still very happy that they were not detained. They did not have to do ICE check-in. They did not have to fight this through immigration court. They did not have to do a super complex request for evidence. So much of it was the coaching beforehand so that they are confident so they go in. If they were just super scared the entire time, that increases the chance of denial, right? And so Lisa and Grace did a lot of coaching and prep, and the case got approved.
Yeah, and even though the officers seem to focus on the bona fide marriage part, I know that Grace and Lisa also coached them in regards to like the whole immigrant intent, because one of their children had, I think shortly after they got the B2 visa, he had enrolled in high school. So even though they didn't go in that direction, I think we did a lot of work, because you just never know.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have gone the whole other way around and they could have been questioned for bona fide marriage, but at least they would have been prepared. And
right.
I think that's
part of They could have been challenged on the tourist visa entry. They could have been challenged on the visa overstay. They could have been challenged on fraud, misrepresentation, and be required to file for a waiver, right? So, you know, just unlawful presence, unlawful work, you married to a U.S. citizen, you don't have to apply for a waiver. But if you lied to an immigration officer, well, then now you have to apply for fraud, and then now you have to file for a 601 waiver with this application, right? So there's a lot of things that could have happened, but they were able to do it. Okay, cool. Cheers. See you guys when I do.